Good afternoon and welcome to the broadcast of the Enid City Commission study session meeting. Broadcasting live in high definition from the lower level conference room at the City Administration Building located at 401 West Owen K. Garriott. Please stay tuned as Mayor Bill Shuey presides over the meeting.
Concern on the regular session agenda of April 5, 2016. Nothing?
I've got nothing.
Anybody? Hearing none. Item 3, discussion of potential CDBG projects. Stephanie?
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners. We are here to discuss the funding and project options for CDBG for 2016. Our total allocation is $387,471. Our Section 108 loan is $158,348. Admin is $70,000. And available for other projects is $159,123.
While we're on that particular slide, how much longer are we going to be paying for the loan for the NOC?
2019 should be our last payment.
I'm not too far out.
Yeah, a couple more years.
And that's the annual payment?
Yes, sir. Priorities and potential projects, we came up with sidewalks to improve the walkability for residents connecting to the Broadway area. It wouldn't particularly be on Broadway, but connecting to it, possibly Randolph. The other project is water service and fire flow improvement on Maple between 2nd and 3rd Street. And Government Springs South Park improvements. And also another priority is our homeless prevention and or emergency repairs. Total available for those projects is that number 159,123. On the sidewalk improvements, Morali and I looked at the area to see the good, bad, and the ugly sidewalks. These were probably the most needed and the area that connected to Broadway and to the school area. The estimated cost on that is $200,000. The Maple Avenue fire flow improvement is the brick road there in front of Leonardo's. And that estimated cost to relocate that is $150,000. Government Springs South Park, there are numerous projects that need to go on in the area. Restroom facilities, concession building, sidewalks within the park, parking, fencing, bleachers, and lighting. And the estimated cost on those to get started is $542,100. The location is on a landfill site for the concession building, so that could, depending on what type of things you run into, that could be a lot higher.
Well, we may relocate that as part of the whole improvement project, because I don't know if the engineers would let us build a new building on the landfill side.
We'd probably have to bore, fix it.
Yeah.
It might be easier just to move it.
Okay, with that, and CDSA, it does our homeless prevention, emergency repairs, and they also do barrier removal, which barrier removal is if you're in the hospital and you come home and you're in a wheelchair, they widen the doors or put in an ADA shower, things like that. They also do emergency repairs such as putting a roof on a house that has a leaky roof, fix a hole in the floor, hot water heaters, things like that to keep elderly people in their home. This past year, they did approximately 45 low-income elderly or disabled throughout the city. Priority ranking, number one is the Section 108, of course, admin to run the program. The next highest would be park improvements. That's in our 5-year consolidated plan. Another high priority is the emergency repairs. Medium would be the sidewalk, and low is the fire flow improvement. And the reason why that one's low versus the sidewalks is because the sidewalks are in a neighborhood and the other is not. Tonight we're doing the funding recommendations. Next meeting, we'll approve the resolution for submission of the plan. That's due May 15th.
Yeah, Commissioners, what this is intended to be is an open discussion about the CDBG funding and how you would like to see it spent. We've shown you 3 projects plus the emergency repair, which meets the criteria of what you changed the program to be based on using for city infrastructure and up to 50% for homeless, home repair stuff. At this point, this is our recommendations. As always, you guys make the decision. You are the committee now. So this is intended to be an open discussion to talk about these projects. We're going to talk about Government Springs more in depth at the next study session because we think that it would be helpful to leverage these monies and spend them down in the park if we're really going to make a difference. So this is our process now, and what Stephanie is telling you is that next time we'll come back and we can discuss it some more, but there'll be an action item on for you to approve a resolution that Stephanie will use with staff to put together the CDBG application to HUD, which is due by May 15th.
Commissioner Tim is familiar with this process because he's been on the CDBG funding committee for the past several years. What I've done is staff recommendation, and those are, we went by highest to lowest priority. We've recommended that those 2 automatically be funded. The Government Springs Park receive $109,000 and the emergency repairs to receive $50,000 and the other 2 projects to receive nothing from CDBG.
How did we come up with the amount of $109,123? I mean, are there specific projects there in the park that will fund?
We could possibly use the entire allocation for that.
Well, I understand that, but I was just curious
Just a
what
subtraction.
we were going to do for $109,123.
That would be up to you guys. It's just a subtraction of dollar amount, and that's what's being
So
allotted.
that's just a
So-
dollar amount. That's not.
Right.
Right, you would have to determine which parts of those you wanted to tackle with those dollars.
Okay.
What was last year's homeless allocation?
75,000.
How much?
75,000, yes.
Well, I think that's a pretty good compromise. I'm in favor of those recommendations.
The total was $542,000 for Government Springs South.
Yes, sir.
And those are rough estimates, Mayor, based on,
I understand that.
yes, sir.
So
Question
if that's
one.
how-
Where does the balance of the money come from to finish that project? We're gonna get it started and stopped.
We have applied for grant funding for
Great.
restrooms, and we'll know about those around May before budget time. So we should know if we've received those grants by then.
We had 75,000 for the homeless last year. How much did we have for projects?
Last year's project, oh,
This year.
this year,
Yeah, we're still in this year.
Current year.
Oh,
June 30.
for 2015, it's $10,000 less this year than it was last year. We received $399,000, and we used approximately about the same on admin and section 108 loan.
I understand that, but we've got to have some total in between the two, between 1 and 2 and the $75,000 for 2015. Did we get projects completed?
We went to more categories. Last year, we put 75,000 to CDSA. We had 30. What went to?
Salvation Army.
Salvation
Booker T.
Army.
Washington. all-
For around 44,000 for Salvation Army, and Booker T. Washington, I believe, was around 45,000.
That's last year.
That was last year.
One
They're
of the
working
po-
on that
one of the
right now,
points is
currently.
Nobody last year, I don't believe, got 109,000, is that
No,
right?
No, they did not.
Right.
So we're trying to allocate as big an amount as we can, but Tammy had a question too,
Well,
Mayor.
I was just gonna say, if the park project is the most expensive one, then are we really gonna get that much done if we can only put that much towards it?
Well, but if we do the park, if we do Government Springs Park as a,
Dan, let Gerald answer the question. I think she was asking him.
Well, that's okay, he can have
so
some input.
if we do Government Springs South as a multi-year project, and I think by its nature it has to be, we can get something started in the 16-17 fiscal year, partially funded by this, partially funded by a grant,
Art money.
and then as, you know, year after year, we can continue to make improvements in kind of a multi-phase.
That
Are
was
we
reason for-
planning on, removing the ball fields from there, or are we still gonna leave ball fields there?
We're gonna come back April 19th, and you guys, we're gonna have an action item this time, that you guys are gonna help make that decision, because when we talked about it in February, there was still, you know, I think some of you were in favor of moving the football field, some of you are in favor of moving the softball field. I think the general consensus that I'm getting is that, from the commission, now's a good time for you guys to tell me, but we'll talk about it again next time. I think if we're looking at having themes in our big parks, then Crossland, I think, is expected to have the theme of, or is already designed to have the theme of baseball, softball would fit in with that. So moving the softball fields is certainly one of the options we're looking at next time, moving the football fields, just putting the BMX in Crossland, which doesn't fit the theme, and then also looking at putting the BMX in that portion in the back behind the jail and improving the fields where they're at, and then potentially building a new complex at Crossland when there's funding available.
Mayor, the reason the numbers on the park are high is because we don't know the direction the commission wants to go with it yet, so we put
I'm not
pieces
supporting
of
anything
whatever
in
you
Government
might do.
Springs unless all the ball fields
Um,
get moved out.
If you decide to
one
move
ballpark
something,
left there.
one of those might not be applicable, whereas we just put,
My question was more of
And the new
what
ballparks
we
at Government
funded
Springs.
last year. And they have a lot of projects that are not going to get finished this year. They're not going to get any funds.
Well, I don't think there's ever money enough to do a project. It's usually just a portion.
Kind of like farming, isn't it?
Yeah, you'll never be able to have enough money to do any project with the amount that you have to give out.
That's correct. When we get those applications like we had previously done, it would be a $100,000 project, and we may give them $20,000 to
I
help.
understand
Tammy, was your,
Excuse me.
that. Aaron had something.
go ahead.
It's so hard when I have to turn my back to it.
Aaron, be sure and speak up
Yes, sir.
so they can pick you up
On the timeline, if you would go back to that slide, please.
Let's see, Dana.
not that one.
Racy picture there.
There you go. April 19th, so 2 weeks from now, whatever we determine, those funds have to be used for that project, right? So if we say 109,000 to Government Springs, we're required by federal guidelines to spend 109,000 on Government Springs. Is that correct? Is that what I'm understanding?
That
you
is-
said there?
That is correct. You can always make a substantial amendment to any plan before you start a project. But yeah, basically, yes.
we have done amendments in the past, and they're really good to work with us, but typically we try to move the direction that we turn.
Well, I think I understand maybe what the mayor's saying, but in the event that we get into it and something is not going to be funded as thoroughly as it might have been, or as we would like for it to have been, could we then come back and say, why don't we look at the sidewalk on Randolph instead of doing Government Springs? Or are we stuck with funding Government Springs?
You're not stuck. You can change it. The CDBG coordinator might give you a dirty look, but just
Well, we
kidding.
want to stay on your good side, but I just want to ask.
It's a tremendous
I'm
amount.
biased, but I really kind of like that fire flow issue fixed on the table, but.
We had a question down here, man.
Can we not just change it to park improvements instead of Government Springs park improvements and just leave
Qualified
it
census tract.
where we want?
It's gotta be in the census tract.
It's got to be in
Could
an area that
park improvements within the
qualifies.
census tract.
Well, that'd make it look less restrictive. We just change the title.
Are there other parks that would?
I don't know what any other parks fall in.
Champion is
Well,
in the
yeah.
qualified census tract. Don
Champion.
Haskins is in the
Haskins.
qualified census
Right.
tract.
Is Government Springs in it?
Government Springs North is, yeah. The South is sure in a lot more need.
Meadow Lake, is Meadow Lake in that tract? Part of Meadow Lake
Oh,
anymore?
Probably.
It might be,
I think
yeah.
it is.
How can we find out?
I have a map and I can bring that. I can email it to Gerald and he can send that out.
That's probably the one most in need.
Well,
Oh, yeah,
we're
certainly.
going to have some discussions from those that are not going to be covered this year.
Okay. Yes. Mhm.
Doesn't matter.
Mhm.
Would you go back to the priority slide there?
It isn't like we can't bring some new thing that you haven't into this too, right?
Right.
I mean,
That's right.
we can
Right.
bring
Sure.
anything into Booker T or Salvation Army or anything.
And that's,
Right.
Yes.
now's the time to do it.
Do you still get applications?
No, I have not. Since we announced that we weren't opening up to outside agencies, I haven't done an application process.
I think Aaron's point is a good question.
If you put that you may do all of these things in the action plan or the grant proposal, and you end up doing one thing under there, that's okay. It's saying you're going to do one thing and doing something totally different. That's because the public will see this action plan, and to change it, it has to be a big deal. We need to do several public hearings on those to make sure that the public's aware of any changes that we make.
So Stephanie, you're saying that if the commission wants to focus this in Government Springs South or all the parks that qualify in the census tract, we just need to be broad in the action plan, and then we figure out exactly what we're doing, we'll be fine. But if we say we're gonna do a restroom at Government Springs Park and that's that narrow, and then we decide we want to do sidewalks or a softball field or a football field, we would have to reopen the process.
Yes.
So we want to be broad in the action plan, and I think that's your point.
After HUD receives this on May 15th, they have a 45-day comment period where people can call and make comments there, and then they will come back and say, wait a minute, why are you doing this? And they may have questions, but as long as we put as much information as possible in this original plan that goes to them, the better off we'll be.
Have they ever done that? Just out of curiosity, I mean, how much do they actually ask after we submit the plan?
I think it's only happened one time, and it was an organization that didn't get what they thought that they should have gotten.
Oh, okay.
And HUD was like, I just want to let you know that you had this complaint,
Okay.
but it's invalid.
Thanks.
Anything
People
else?
complain about free money.
No, sir.
You know, people complain about anything.
Do what, Tammy?
Hmm?
Do what?
I said, will people complain about free money?
Yes.
Rude.
We're going to move on to item 4. Thank you, Stephanie. Discuss the 2016-2017 budget schedule. Aaron,
Skip it.
Good evening, Mayor, Commissioners.
be sure to speak into the mic.
Absolutely. We're just going to high level talk about budget, have open discussion as far as meeting dates and if they're going to work, any feedback in case there's anything we need to change so we can advertise the way that we need to do that. Here are the requirements again that are required by state law. We have to present the budget to you 30 days prior to the fiscal new year. Budget hearing has to occur 15 days prior to the new year, and we have to advertise for that hearing at least 5 days prior. Budget approval has to be 7 days in advance. Typically, we have not done that with an emergency, so that kind of moves up our whole timeline 30 days prior to that. So as we look at that, this is what we're projecting right now and asking for feedback from you on these dates. Looking at coming Friday, April 22nd with an initial draft for you to review. Planning special budget meetings on April the 26th, May the 5th, and May the 10th. Discussing at the regular May 3rd meeting and planning to have the budget hearing that night, and May 17th for the budget approval. In reviewing some stuff today, I do know that May Fete right now is scheduled to be May 3rd, and I'm not sure if that will be an issue for this year. I know it was last year, and so if we need to do anything to adjust that, we just need to know that.
You said when is it?
May the 3rd.
Yeah, my daughter's a senior, so I can't come to that one.
Okay.
And I also can't come on the 26th of April.
Okay. 26 is not a good day.
Okay.
Is it daytime meetings or nighttime meetings? Makes a difference. too.
Yeah, are they daytime or evening?
We can do it to fit your schedules. I mean,
Yes.
we could do, it's a special meeting, so we could do it at noon, or we could do it.
6 a.m.?
No.
Yeah, I'm game.
No.
Suits a couple of our schedules.
No.
Yeah, it works great for me. Love it.
No.
Love it.
We can have a quorum.
No, 6 o'clock.
And 6 o'clock comes twice a
It
day.
just takes 4 of us, right? We've got Rodney, I know you're there around.
I'll come, but I'm coming in
You'd
my
already have
jammies.
cows fed by 6.
I'm gonna come,
That's all we care about.
come in my jammies if it's
Good
6
luck,
in the
Aaron.
morning.
The 26th
Can we
would work
email-
at noon, but not at
Right.
night.
Well, and the 3rd I could do at noon too, I just can't do those evenings.
Well, the 3rd is actually a commission meeting, Tammy, so
Oh,
we
so
need to
we
move that whole meeting to like Thursday night,
Yeah.
because so that, are you the only one that impacts?
I think I'm the only one, or no, you have a senior too.
We could still move
Sandra
it
and
to
I both have
Thursday if everyone
seniors
agreed to that.
this year.
I'll have to look at my calendar and email you.
What we could do is, you can take it down tonight, we'll take your, we'll email it out and maybe get a consensus, but it sounds like we could do the 26th at noon, maybe.
Right.
The 3rd sounds like we might move to the 5th, perhaps, at the regular time. What about and these special meetings, if we determine we don't need them after a while, we could cancel them, but the 5th and 10th,
That's never happened.
well, I'm always hopeful.
I can do any of those other days. I can do any of those days if they're in the afternoon. I just can't do
Well,
them
in
in
the
the evening.
past, some of these budget meetings ran kind of long.
Yes, they have.
I don't know if we ever wound one up in an hour.
No, I don't think we ever did.
Well, we would probably try to, the noon one on the 26th, we would probably try to keep to an hour, but the other ones, we would probably want to do like at 5, would that work? Or maybe 4?
Yeah.
Because we probably would need to go a couple hours on some of these at least.
Yeah, if we can try not to have any 3.5 or 4 hour long meetings.
I was just gonna suggest we do 3 days of 4-hour meetings and just get it done.
My God.
You'll all hate each other.
Well, we've done it before, and we all lived through it.
Barely,
David, what was your problem on the 26th?
barely.
The 26th in the evening
Fine, one time.
are commitments, but noon is fine, or 11 o'clock is fine on the 26th.
What about the 28th?
26 is fine with me.
Okay,
April the 28th,
No, it's not.
which is a Thursday.
if I'm not mistaken, is that the evening of the triangle celebration?
That's the 21st.
21st.
When's graduation? That's way later, right?
26th.
6th. So it sounds like we could do the 26th, we'll keep it to an hour, that'll just be talking about the initial overview stuff. And then we'll get more in depth at the regular meeting, which may be moved to the 5th, it sounds like, if we're gonna move it.
Okay.
And then 5th and 10th, did everybody say they could do that if it was in the afternoon?
Yep.
So maybe 4 o'clock?
You wanna have 2 meetings the 5th then?
Oh, good point. Move it to the 5th.
We do the budget on the 4th and city council on the 5th.
Yeah.
Okay, so May the 4th is Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Yeah, do the budget meeting on the 4th and the city commission on the 5th.
Does that work for everybody?
Yeah.
May 4th? Okay.
Not for me on the 4th. And what time were you discussing on the 4th?
Evening?
Probably about 4 or 5 o'clock. Would that work for you, Mayor?
5 o'clock, I have an OML state board meeting that day.
So if we did it at 5, we could probably do 2 hours that night.
Sure.
And the next
The
night.
notes.
Like Erin is. She's a meticulous note taker. I'm lucky.
All right. So,
But the budget goes as quick as that deal, that works all right.
Somehow, I don't think it'll quite go that
We
fast.
don't get along so well, it'll be easy this year.
One,
The retreat was fabulous.
can I have one more question about the budget? Now, I think I asked this last year, and I'm not sure what we ended up doing, but is the entire budget basically on one big spreadsheet?
no.
It's on, it's,
Good answer.
it's on a bunch of worksheets that we could send to you, and last year I think we did, but it's not on all one.
Because I'd like to, if I want to take $1 million out of this category and put it over here, I want it to change the spreadsheet and not have to get so confusing. That's not possible?
We did kind of talk about last budget cycle, having something like that ready for this budget
Yeah.
cycle. I also have.
Because we could all play with it, and we could have the Zell brand budget and the Van Heuser brand budget if we could play with it.
We might need a couple more special meetings, it sounds like, Aaron.
Oh, God.
Maybe less. We can look at it. I know currently we don't have one spreadsheet that changes everything, but we will look at it and try to
At
accommodate.
least get it into small packets of some sort, because
That'd be a lot
I
easier.
think some of us would kind of almost like to come up with our own budget to compare to what you come up with, and if we
I would
could.
not be one of those people. Do it. I'll just look at what you guys
I think you need to do it your
do.
way and let us adapt to it.
No,
Well,
I don't
just
know,
please-
Mayor, I kind of like the idea of having a spreadsheet where we could look at it.
With
side by
everything
side.
on it?
Yeah, that would actually, that would be
That would
helpful.
allow us the privilege
I
of
get so confused.
trying to manipulate and come up with a compromise that works better.
Well, even just as an aid for getting your head wrapped around it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other,
Visual.
if we can make sure that it gets sent out as a searchable PDF instead of just the image PDF when it does get sent out, that helps too.
Yes.
Even if it's just by fund with totals, not with all of the detail in it. that
Right,
wouldn't be too hard
right.
to do.
Aaron's got time to,
I'm sure we'll come up with something.
Sorry, Aaron.
Sound
Oh, we get
like-
it.
And
While
the
we're
sooner
talking
the better.
financial, Where's our audit?
It actually just came in today, and so we will be emailing it to you after the meeting. And so that will also be on the April 19th study session.
Okay.
So April 19th will probably be a complete study session visit.
But we'll have a week, 2 weeks to look at the audit before we have to talk about it.
I think you'll get it tonight.
Okay,
I think
great.
We were error checking it to make sure that, and I think that,
Still
I
need
think
to
it's
look at it.
clean right now, so.
Great.
And we don't have to pay them for another couple of months since they were so late, right?
We are holding the check, and,
Let them
Mike
call us 2 or
Gibson-
3 times for it.
How long is their contract? Is that a 5-year contract?
It was a 5-year deal. It was a 1-year deal with an option to renew. We're in the 3rd year, and we are prepared to
We
bid that
changed to
out.
that company 3 years ago, I think.
Yes, sir. And we're prepared to bid it out if that's what the commission would like to do.
Do we have a 5-year contract? Tell me that again.
We don't have a 5-year. What we have is it was a 1-year contract with an option to renew for 4 additional 1-year periods.
Okay.
We have done that for 2 additional 1-year periods. This is the 3rd audit they've done for us. So technically, we could go back to them for 2 more years before we bid it out. But I know we have a bid package prepared, ready to go out, because that may be something we need to do to help us with our timeliness.
Well, it's supposed to have been an advantage of using them 2 or 3 years in a row to make it easier. It's actually got longer.
We
They
will
were better off the first year,
There have been
when they didn't know how
major,
this worked.
yes, there have been major changes this year, and so it's been a struggle, but we will talk about that more on the 19th, and certainly maybe even before, if you guys would like to. But the first part is to get you the audit, which I think we'll be able to accomplish tonight, because we actually have it in our hands now.
The agreement that we signed with them, though, was to have this audit complete by the end of the calendar year. And they certainly missed that target a long ways. I certainly be in favor of us bidding it out again. See if we couldn't find somebody that could give us an audit on time. These people obviously can't.
There's timing issues for this year, in order for them to get it done. I don't know if we have time to get it bid out and get somebody chosen again, but.
Oh, surely somebody would like to get a big check from the city of
I'll tell you
Enid.
what, I mean, the timing is the issue, and ideally, if we're gonna rebid it, whether we have time or not, this year or next, I'd like to consider a reduction in cost if they don't meet the deadline.
I think that's a good tool to help us.
I understand that they are somewhat at the liberty of staff, but if you have a schedule presented where you have to meet certain benchmarks, and if you meet those benchmarks, they have to meet theirs. If they don't meet them, then we ought to be subject to 5 or 10% reduction for every 30 days it takes, something like that.
I think we'll want to do that with the next engagement letter, whether it's with them or somebody else. We will go ahead and send out a bid package, and we'll see what kind of interest we get. And I think we can have those results back probably by the first meeting in May, so that potentially if you direct us to change, we can certainly do that and then get a schedule and accommodate with a new engagement letter those requirements.
All right, ready to move on from this?
Oh, yeah, there's more in the budget presentation.
Just want to get some more feedback again. These are the deferrals from the current year budget that we passed in June. As we look through these, there are some of these projects that may or may not come back as we have discussions with engineering and have other projects that have came to light in this last year that may have risen to a higher priority. And also we know that we're right off the bat not going to be able to fund this amount of capital in the new budget based on projections that we're looking at with the Call Lake project that have been discussed previously. I just quickly want to go through what these deferrals were. There was some Diamond software replacement. This is for utility billing, code, business licenses, and so on and so forth. It's 10 plus years old now, and there's just some deficiencies that we're looking to replace with that. East Broadway Mill and Overlay, the sidewalk partnership programs, those were cut out of the current year's budget. 3.1 out of the capital improvement program that we're going to be in consideration of. And then we have sanitary sewer.
Can you go back?
Yes. No, you're good. I'm going to go through each of these.
No, it's just.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. Sanitary sewer, there were 4 projects cut out of last year. And that was largely based on staffing and what they could get done there. And they decided to scale back on some of those projects and bring back those or wherever they deem to be most important in that area for sanitary sewer with engineering input there. And water capital, some of these water supply development, that was based on stuff that may come up with CAW. Of course, that's going to come back as a financing package going forward, so that will not come back in the original budget. It'll come back when we do an amendment to do whatever financing options we choose from there. Water main replacement, we cut that down in this last budget from $500,000 to $100,000, and to date, that has not been taken advantage of on our pilot program there. And then water main replacement, that was one where we cut partial, where we did some of the meters and didn't do the others, and I'm not sure if that one is going to come back or not, but we'll continue to have discussions on what those priorities are as we look to get everything wrapped up and put together in something for you guys on the 22nd. Right now, looking at projected revenues for next year, this is, the first column is what we budgeted for this year in each of these categories. This is a general fund. And then the next column shows projections of where we think we're going to come in this year and the variances. And based off of those and looking at some 3, 5, 10-year average sheets that we have, this is what we're proposing that we budget for revenues for FY17. If there's any discussion or differences that you guys would like to see in that, I'm open to hearing those ideas so that we can get those reflected in the initial budget and start making those cuts now instead of when we start on those budget meetings coming up. Right now, we're projecting about a 9% decrease over our current year budget. You see we're projecting to come in at 3.1 in sales tax. We're projecting even a little bit lower next year based on the fact that we had some higher months in this year that may or may not come in. Next week, we'll know more. We'll have another month of sales tax in to see where that trend's going, if it's continuing to go down or if it's going to be going back up, and if we can get a little better handle on that. The only other major differences is franchise tax. It's coming in lower. We don't anticipate that to be the case going forward. We had kind of mild winter that affected the usage on ONG quite significantly, which has brought that in lower in this 1 year. But when we look at 3, 5, 10-year averages, we think that that number's on at the only lowering at $50,000 from the current budget. And not much else changed in that one. I'm gonna flip over to the municipal authority. Same type thing. We go through each of these, same formatting. You can see big variances as we talk through this. Water coming in high. Basically, Coke was running a year behind where we were projecting them to. That's why those water revenues are coming in higher. We're still thinking that based on the latest data from them that it will be that $11 million for the next year for water revenues. Stormwater is coming in a little higher, so we did increase that one. We've seen that trend for a few years now where it's a little bit higher than that budget. Landfill is coming in significantly higher. That's based on some one-time that we don't project to continue seeing. That's based on the expansion at Coke and some fees that they've had in doing that expansion. There's a little bit of an increase there. Everything else, the only other big change is this reimbursement, of course, that we're talking about that was from the properties at Lahoma Courts that we're not going to budget in for this next year. And grant revenue, the reason why we're not projecting to bring anything in there is we budgeted it for this year, but it came in June of the year prior. So we'd already approved the budget when we had that number in there, but we received the money early. And then sales tax is both the 1% sales tax here and the school sales tax. And so that's where that decrease is coming in there. So you can see off the bat where we're projecting to come in for revenues and the expenses that we're going to have to fit within to have balanced budgets there. So if there's any input or on that, I'm glad to take any input and make those changes prior to when you receive the initial draft on the 22nd.
Are you budgeting staff at 95% again this year for general fund and the EMA, or?
We're looking at budgeting staff at 100%
Okay.
right now, and then we'll see where the budget comes in and what we might be forced to look at.
Okay.
I would like to comment on that, and Gerald, we've visited about this a little bit at the retreat, but I think the easy place to cut is looking at expenses on staff. And my personal opinion is nothing gets done if we don't fund staff. So I would like to encourage all of us to think about, we need to fund staff first, and then whatever we can have left over, we can spend that on city projects. But these people work too hard to not fund them appropriately. Soapbox complete.
We had talked, everybody I'm sure remembers distinctly and with great fondness, the budget compromise that we approved 2 weeks after we passed last year's budget. There was that list of what was in the budget and then what we decided to keep and what we decided to cut. And we had this discussion of everything that gets cut is the top of the list next year. For whatever it's worth, just kind of going through there, it looks like all of that is currently on there. I don't see anything big that got left off unless I'm missing one from that final spreadsheet that we ended up with.
Good.
So that's all that stuff that we wanted to be able to do last year is on there for this year.
Good deal.
Well, that's on there, but it's not necessarily, the budget's
Yeah,
not
no.
addressed, so it may not fit, and I think that's what Aaron's telling us. Some of that's
Sure.
probably still not gonna fit, so there's gonna be hard decisions.
Talk about the
Oh, no.
$3,100,000
I'm sure.
in deferrals. What happens to them in the fiscal year 17 budget?
Back.
Have we forgotten about them, or have you rolled that into 2017?
No, here's the amount of the deferrals, $5.9 million. We are not gonna be able to fund $5.9 million. And in the last year, there's been other projects that came in that have risen to the same level of priority. So as staff goes through these, looking at 5-year plans and what we need to do to maintain infrastructure, and we will bring back what our recommendations are, but these are being given a priority based on the fact that they were deferred last year.
These are at least a starting point.
Yes, absolutely,
Capital accounts always get funded.
yes.
Oh, boy.
Good job.
When are we gonna have a budget draft?
The 22nd of April.
Okay. Got it.
On an Excel spreadsheet.
So
I'll work on that.
And we'll probably have the Van Hoosier draft on Monday, the 25th.
Oh, by 6 a.m. Friday.
So that free time you have.
Yeah, yeah.
Probably already done your draft, haven't you?
I've got it all right here.
Anything else, Aaron? We are adjourned. We'll meet upstairs at 6:30.
Holy man.
I think we were planning on doing the audit tonight.
We'll make up for it next time.
Yeah.
So we're gonna talk Carl Lake, audit, and Government Springs.
Thank you for joining us for the Enid City Commission study session. If you have any questions or comments, visit our website at enid.org. Thank you for joining us for the Enid City Commission study session. If you have any questions or comments, visit our website at enid.org.